Hey everybody, how's it going today? Uh, Everything looking sound good? Please let me know. Always trying to get this thing. This is a streaming program, so it's always new. Always wondering how it's going to go when it's going on. All right, so today, a few quick house cleaning things. I have a few things on sale, of course, as always. Thank you so much for everybody being here. I have for the first 20 people, if you sign up now, you get 60% off the foundational blues licks course, which is teaching how to play foundational blues licks, which I think was really kind of cool stuff to know to build up your vocabulary. Smaller ideas, you can start to expand upon them, build on top of each other, and become a better blues and blues rock guitar player. Also, I have 50% off some other stuff there. Got the list below. Vivi has been cool enough. What's up, Vivi, for putting everything in the chat, and I appreciate that. So we'll do a little bit of talking about this, maybe not today, but I got my 68 Strat back from my good friend Holger Notzel. So it's a 1968 Stratocaster that I traded a bunch of guitars for because it was cool. And it's Big Headstock Wednesday, whatever that means. I'm trying to make that a thing. Like a hashtag Big Headstock Wednesday. All right. So my special guest is, first of all, my best friend in all the world, Angus Clark, who has played with Kitaro, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We just got off the road of a few months with them. If you want to definitely go see them anytime you can. And she saw the great picture of him on top of the riser. Jolyn Turner, he's played with this woman called Cher, Rock of Ages and School of Rock on Broadway, and more. And I'm going to bring Angus to the forefront today. What's up, man?
What's up?
How's it going?
It's going. It's good to be back home.
Oh, sure. How was the tour?
The tour was awesome. We didn't do quite the numbers we did last year, but last year was exceptional because that was our second year out of the pandemic, but it was the first year that everybody was like raring to go.
Yeah.
And then this year I feel like everybody was on tour, so it's totally understandable if folks' ticket buying dollar was stretched. We still, by any measure, across the last 10 years, had a great year. So people were
Awesome.
there. Band was great. It was a really tight set. I was on stage for almost the whole time. It's like 2.25 hours. So I think it was at
Pretty athletic
51.
show. I mean, what you do is really pretty. So, what's your workout regime before the tour?
It's,
I know
it
you're a
was,
Peloton guy.
yeah, there's a lot of Peloton going on.
Yeah.
Also, I'm 56, so I have a certain amount of maintenance I have to do with my knees and like
It's the motorcycle
therapy.
boots.
Physical therapy and stuff. I don't wear motorcycle boots on stage anymore. Although I did
No.
go back to wearing boots
Okay.
because
They were like the orthopedic kind, right?
I would get up there in hospital shoes.
Yeah.
That's
And there was
I draw the line there. I draw the
or,
line.
yeah,
Quality footwear on stage
or
always
Crocs.
it matters.
They're running around in Crocs.
But we had a great time. I mean, I've come home from tour massively injured, like one of my knees shot or something. I managed to make it out unscathed.
Yeah.
I had some nice features in the show. There, Trans-Siberian Orchestra was originally Savatage, and we still do some material that appeared on Savatage records. Actually, the TSO single originally appeared on a Savatage record, but this year we added something that was like a guitar feature that was originally written and played by Chris Oliva, the founding guitar player from Savatage, who's kind of one of those unsung heroes. Depending on what room you're in, he's one of those highly praised or unsung heroes of 80s rock guitar, kind of in the
Hmm.
in the Randy Rhoads vein. So it was really neat to get to do that. And that picture of me on the 20-foot elevator is that moment in the show. So that
Yeah.
was really killer to
I
have
should have
that.
it be able to drop right now. You're on top of this big riser with your hands up, master of the universe.
Yeah, and all
They got
that.
you like harnessed onto that though, don't they?
There's a I'm wearing a I don't know what they call a tactical belt. It's a standard tactical belt, but it has an a steel eye hook on it where the buckle is. The funny thing about that being is that I have to put it on backwards. So like
Right.
once I'm once I've I put on my outfit for the show. I have this belt on backwards. It's really hard to get out of it. And so that's what I wear as my belt. And then when I get on a riser, there's a chain with a carabiner on it, like a quick release carabiner. And typically I just clip myself in and clip myself out. Sometimes there are things going on and they have somebody reach up and, unhook you and stuff like that, which I always turned into a gag. I would stick a dollar bill in my pocket and the guy would come up and unhook me and I would like pull the dollar bill out, tip him. And people in the first 5 rows would get a kick out of that.
That's pretty funny. I'm sorry to say I've never seen you with a TSO because it's not come to this coast. It's always been you do. I know. How many years have you been doing it?
We're going to fly you to Florida or Chicago and get you.
And how many years have you been doing it?
22 years.
And I've known you for like 30 something.
It's okay.
Sorry, man. Sorry, man. Sorry. Yeah, about that. Sorry.
It's okay.
But if you get to go see it, I'd love to go see it. I see all your other gigs though.
Yeah, man.
So there's a picture behind you, which is a great example of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, that's one of the cherry picker gag. We didn't have those this year.
Okay.
I think everybody uses them. There's pictures of Taylor Swift on one of those and
You guys
stuff
started
like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take credit for everything.
Sure,
My
yeah.
idea.
It's your idea. Nobody's ever done that before. All right, so today we're talking about, now of course this is totally ridiculous. I know people are going to be like, well, what about this record? What about that record? And that's all part of the fun. This is completely our opinions, and of course that makes them the 100% truth and undeniable facts that of course, that nobody can argue. But put your favorite 70s heavy record. So here's the really kind of loose thing, because Angus and I, we first met at the first one of the years we started teaching together at the National Guitar Summer Workshop and headed off. And we both had like these same exact musical tastes, pretty much. You know what I mean? So we just hit it off right away. Not so much a Lord of the Rings guy, but the Star Trek thing we also really bonded on. So I've sent Angus some Lord of the Rings things, and he's like, I wasn't a fan. So the parameters are pretty loose. It's just the records that influence us the most. Are they heavy metal? I don't know. Is it heavy? That title of heavy metal, when did that really start to come in? 80s, really, in my mind, of like, this is a heavy metal band. You could say Blue Cheer was the first heavy metal band. Everybody's going to have their opinions as to what this was. But, in my mind, who started heavy metal as we know it?
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. Yeah, exactly. So to me, Black Sabbath, and any real metal fan will say Sabbath was the first metal band that set the template. You can argue that all you want, but we're right, because let's listen to it.
I was going to say, Jeff, the whataboutism isn't just part of what's going on here. The whataboutism is the point.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing this in order to get the whatabout comments. That is
exactly.
why we're here. It's more about who we're leaving out.
Right.
That's the entire reason we're doing this.
Yes. Well, I'm going to bring this up real fast because this is true. Yes. Heavy and metal are two different things. So yeah. So, that's what I'm saying. Oops. There we go. I lost how that happened. So that happens. Like, we just don't, that. Is it metal? Is it not metal? Who cares? It's heavy stuff. So some people call some of the stuff metal. Some people call it heavy. All right. So what is, we're not going in necessarily numerical order, because I think we actually have the same number one record, though. I would think.
Oh.
But, okay. So what is your first pick? He's got records. He's got actual albums.
I have actual album. So I was gonna, it's good we bring up the whole, heavy versus hard rock thing right now, because we were going through the list, and I was saying that I thought, like, let's just take Judas. I wanted to represent Judas Priest. If we're leaning into metal, I was definitely wanted to have Judas Priest on there, and I was thinking Unleashed in the East.
Okay.
Was like, because it had it was a live record, but probably a lot of studio stuff on it. Had a really modern production sound. A lot of the studio records are so super dry to me and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that one had all those great songs, like a greatest hits of all their albums that they had up to that point, done
Yeah.
really well, with that little more vibrant production, a little more reverb and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But then if we were going to go to hard rock, I was going to say I need to put a Tull record on there because like that was like totally
Pretty hard rock.
foundational
Yeah, at the
for
time,
me.
for sure.
So Aqualung.
Okay. Aqualung.
So let's go honorable mention to Judas Priest Unleashed in the East. And
Honorable.
then, and then number 5 would be Aqualung right here.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go. I mean, come on. If you look at it, it's Barrymore. No, it's Clive Bunker on drums. I'm actually more of a Clive Bunker guy than a Barrymore Barlow guy. This is Martin Barr at his best, and he's still playing great.
Yeah. Check out Martin Barr's Jethro Tull thing that he's touring with. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, and you've got John Evan, the mix of like the Gibson style guitar and the piano across a lot of these tracks is like so super cool to me. That was just like there's something just really awesome about it. And that's part of when I got with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, it's piano and kind of a Gibson style guitar. I was like, I felt some kinship with that. So I'm going to go with Jethro Tull Aqualung.
It's funny. That's one of my favorite records. I still, that's pretty much on the rotation. I got back into a big Tull thing. They did some nice remixes of them that were really good. And so I started kind of going down the rabbit hole, and I love Songs from the Wood, which is such a great record too. And they were talking about, Ian Anderson was saying they recorded, I don't remember what studio it was. Where is it recorded? You could probably see it right there. And there was Studio 1 and Studio 2. And they got the big room, and they're like, why did Zeppelin take the small room? Like, oh, because the big room sounds terrible. So they hate the sound of that record, just out of a little interesting thing. And if you listen to Songs from Wood and a few other things, they do sound sonically better.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just an interesting when you put that on, you're like, oh, wow, that is much better. And he was complaining about that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Island Studios.
Okay. So Zeppelin got the other room at the same time.
Right.
So I would say, all right, Killing Machine by Judas Priest. I wish I had the cover to show you. But Delivering the Goods, Green Man Alishi's on that. I see where you're coming from with the live record, but for me, Killing Machine was the first record from Priest. Let me see what's on it. I can't remember all the tunes. Should add this ready.
That's a great one. I mean, it's also isn't it also called Hellbent for Leather? Wasn't it?
Hellbent for Leather. No. I'm talking the wrong. Oh, I said the wrong. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Stained Class.
Stained Class. Yeah.
Being an idiot. I can't believe I did this live. Hold on. Not Hellbent for Leather, right? Or no. What am I doing? I'm having a bad day right now.
Well, that's why I had to.
No, it's Hellbent for Leather. Hellbent for Leather. Excuse me. Hellbent for Leather. Yeah.
I had to dig on the Priest thing because I was like, man, I honestly, just owned everything from British Steel forward. So
I had a friend who got me into British Steel was 80. I had to look it up. I thought British Steel was 79 because it's obviously British Steel is the big one. But I got into a friend who was a little older and had an older brother, and the older brother was into Priest. And I remember hearing, Delivering the Goods, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And Green Man Alishi, I had no idea that Fleetwood Mac had written that, Peter Green, all that, just that was the coolest thing ever. So that was, I'm a huge Priest fan, especially that earlier period. I guess all the way up to Mace, a lot of us older. I think the new stuff's really good. There was that period there where Halford was in and out and all that. But, Screaming for Vengeance is killer. I think all the what's the Head's Gonna Roll. I like that record. I remember I put that on, and certainly Painkiller. And after that, I kind of started to.
Yeah, I actually loved Point of Entry.
I do too. That's a great record.
Weigh in on Point of Entry. It gets beat up, and the funny thing about Point of Entry, and this is something that people my age will know, is that if you ever were traveling across the country and were in a truck stop and they had those racks of cassettes, it'd always be like 10 copies of Point of Entry. And the reason was that British Steel was so phenomenally successful that the label overpressed Point of Entry like by about tenfold. And it wound up getting what's called cleaned, which is where they sell it for pennies on the dollar out the back door, and somebody puts a different UPC code label on it and then distributes it to all these secondary purchasing points like truck stops and stuff like that. So
That's how I got Band of Gypsies. The nice price, you know?
Exactly. But it's a great record. So I love Priest, and it just, from the 70s catalog, I thought Unleashed in the East was
Sure.
was the one.
Sad Wings of Destiny was a close second. I don't love Sad Wings of Destiny from top to bottom, but it does have Victim of Changes on it and the Ripper. So it's like, you know, Victim of Changes may be my favorite Priest tune.
Yeah. Oh, come on. It's right up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to Les Binks. Come on.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And I think Scott Travis is great, but yeah, Les Binks, he was great on those records, man.
The drummer in when I got to Rock of Ages, the drummer of Rock of Ages, a guy named John Weber, and he was the one who was like, Les Binks. And I was like, but you know, the British Steel lineup, I mean, that's like
No.
Les Binks.
That's
So
funny.
anyway, he just was on the KK's Priest. He did a couple of shows with this KK spinoff. So he's
Oh, he
still,
did. Okay.
still
Yeah,
drumming,
KK
stuff
Priest
like
or
that.
whatever he calls it. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So okay, so that was number 5. I'm going Aqualung because I didn't own a.
Just a quick
70s.
note. I agree with a lot of these, so I'm not going to choose the same ones because, you know,
Copy that.
yeah.
Okay, so then I can't find this one, but the next one I was going to say was UFO Obsession, because that was the first one that I got. I have here.
You're giving away some of your secrets. I could see the albums.
I know. I have Force It.
There you go.
This is a great one. What else did I think I have No Heavy Petting in here. Oh, what's that one? That's probably the one you put in.
All right. Then. You know the obvious one I chose.
Phenomenon.
But
And anything else? Christopher Parkening's Box Celebration? No.
that's heavy. In its own
So I'm
way.
going to say UFO Obsession.
Okay.
Only You Can Rock Me, Pack It Up and Go. So many killer tunes, and you know everybody knows I play a V most of the time with the TSO. So that's definitely.
And
one
it
of
was
my
the picture with the flames holding up the guitar, you know?
Well, I did the KK pose mostly this year.
Oh, right. Oh, right. You're holding it by the end of the V, right?
The KK pose is where he has it up like this way over his head. And the Schenker pose is where it's up over here. But we have like a wall of pyro flames go off at the end of the show, and like you just kind of hold that pose and hope somebody takes a picture of it. And then eventually somebody posts it on Instagram, and then you say, someone just happened to catch me in this awesome pose.
And, you know, especially while you're holding it before it's not like a Les Paul, you'll be like, okay, guys.
It's got my shoulders giving out.
Yeah, while you're holding the V up. That's easier.
Totally.
I'm
So
going to make some
that's-
people happy.
So UFO Obsession. I don't know if you want. Can we play a lick?
No, don't play. I'll get hit with the dings. They'll get demonetized and all that. Dang.
Anyway, I think Schenker's tone on that record is amazing. That is the classic lineup, right? It's Paul Raymond on the guitar and keys, Phil Mogg. It's the lineup that Jeff and I saw at the reunion. It's the lineup that played on Strangers in the Night.
And that Walk on Water tour, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and the, you know, if you dig on some of the guitar sounds on that, it was three, no, it was a pig nose, and a 1987, like a 50-watt plexi in a big box. It was before, you know, it was before the 2210 or 2205 was made. So it was a plexi and a pig nose. And that's where you listen to Only You Can Rock Me. The little intro guitar lick is the pig nose. And then when it kicks up, you know, it's the mix of the two. So
Yeah.
really inventive, huge sounds, that all those pastoral pieces with the little acoustic guitar and the you know, half cock wah wah guitars going on it and everything.
Like Tales of Mysteries and that on that one, the original version of.
It's not called that.
Yeah, I
but
know it's not
think
called that, but it's the same. Yeah, yeah.
Because you had the Schenker record with Tales of Mysteries, and you're like, listen to this. And I was like, that's a UFO song, bro.
I don't remember that.
Anyway, so that's my number 4.
All right, my number 4, it could be higher, is Taken by Force by the Scorpions. I am a huge Uli John Roth fan to this day. You know, Sales of Sharon, Catch a Train, all those things. I sometimes blur those records together, like in trance, and as to what songs on what. But Taken by Force, man, that is such a great record. I love the Scorpions, especially that era. I like the Matthias Jobs era quite a bit. And Love Drive, that was 70s. That's pretty kind of right there. That's with Schenker on it, some of it. But to me, that 70s lineup of the Scorpions with Uli John Roth was the sort of the template for, along with Deep Purple, of course, and Rainbow, for like all the neoclassical fusion stuff. And I think, as I did a video, I'm going to go back and check out that I did on the solo for Sales of Sharon, how instrumental, no pun intended, that solo was in the development of me and countless other guitar players, especially with the chop stuff and a little bit of that neoclassical fusion-y thing before it had that name. And also, as I said in my video, if you check it out, that song is very, very similar to Duke Ellington's Caravan. So if you listen to Caravan by Duke Ellington and you listen then to Sales of Sharon, you're like, oh, I think he listened to that a lot. You know what I mean? Not to knock him, as Duke Ellington's. So all that stuff, Tokyo Tapes was on there as well, but Tokyo Tapes does not have Sales of Sharon on it, so I really had to get the thing with Sales of Sharon because I don't think, in my mind, maybe in the States, he doesn't get the due that he is due. He doesn't get the accolades that he's due. He still sounds amazing. I've not ever seen him live. I thought about going. I hear he's incredibly loud still to this day. People have told me that it's just. Have you seen him live? I mean, a long time ago, right?
Yeah, I saw him at like BB King's.
Right. Yeah, he's coming up playing the Iridium in New York. I'm like, and he's got some sort of TED talk that goes on beforehand and all that stuff. So I'm not sure if I want to, you know, just play guitar, man. I want to hear you play guitar, you know. So
what I remember about seeing him was he did this one thing, and I don't know if he's like famous for it or whatever, but he's doing something like chucking the strings and trilling at the same time. So he's like, it's like,
yeah, Polar Nights.
Yeah, I don't know what it was on, but he was like keeping two things happening at the same time, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah,
and if, you know,
and all the crazy other stuff that he was doing.
Catch Your Train, you know, just great tunes. Steam Rock Fever. And I love when you watch, there's some really cool documentaries, and they're still friends if you go on the Scorpions channel. And my friend, and your friend Pavel, is the bass player of the band, which is now for many years. So it was fun. It was fun being, I had a little fanboy moment like a year ago. He was in town with Scorpions playing the Garden, and he called me, and I went and I walked onto the stage, up to the stage with Rudolph, Klaus, and him. Like I'm walking like backstage, and I'm like, there's a stage right there for the Garden, and it's sold out, and I'm walking to the stage with the Scorpions. So I'm trying to be all cool, but like, you know, 15-year-old me was like, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. And Rudolph looks amazing. That guy is totally cut, and he looked great. Like in person, he looked great. Matthias sounded great. He had some problems with his fingers. He had to cancel a bunch of shows because his fingers were ripping open. The theory was, I should maybe not say, that he was using a lot of disinfectant on the road, and it had an adverse effect on his skin, you know, because of COVID and such, that dried out his skin. So he was playing with gloves on, and yeah, it was, yeah, apparently he was, I didn't get a chance to talk to him because I wanted to say how much of a fan I was, and he's like, he's just in a bad spot right now. So let's not. They had to cancel a bunch of dates and things like that. All these Las Vegas dates because of his hands. So
It's, I mean,
so
staying well on the road is definitely an issue. Like, you know, TSO, I don't think we we didn't have anybody. Nobody caught the vid,
yeah,
but I,
great.
you know, like there was some really bad, just cold going around. I know Lily, my daughter, had it, missed like 3 days of school, and what it does, it was just an upper respiratory thing, and you lost your voice. So
Mhm.
a couple of the singers have managed to get that, but they all cover for each other, so we were still able to do the tour. But if you're the
Yeah.
Scorpions, you know, nobody's going to cover for Klaus, right? You know, I
No.
mean,
Yeah.
so that's really hard. So that's I hope everything gets better over there. Man,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my we're up to my top three now, and I'm just gonna put this out there right here, everybody. When I was putting this list together, I don't know what I was trying to be precious, or I was trying to go for like my music, like this was the
Mhm.
stuff that I had in my record
Yeah. That's
collection, and
kind of
that's
what we're talking about.
why it's
Yeah.
my top five. So there's no Zeppelin and AC/DC on my list. Just gonna say that right now. I'm sorry, and you
I
know
know.
you can take me to town in the comments. All right, my number three was Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy.
All right. That's on my list. I'll mark this. Get that up. Okay. You got that one. Go ahead.
I
What's your
mean,
thoughts on the
come
album?
on with this record. It is just top to bottom, like the lyrics, the
Mhm.
production, the guitar tones. It is just like hands. It's just a great album of music. Genre be damned. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like the cowboy song, and of course, Boys Are Back in Town, and all that stuff, and just how innovative that harmony guitar was that they did there. And it's just so,
Emerald, right?
and Emerald, of course. Come on,
Yeah.
just yeah, and I just love everything about what Phil and the gang did, and that's that again is the classic lineup with Brian Robertson. There are a lot of people who are like, isn't Gary Moore? Wasn't Gary Moore
Scott
in the
Gorham,
band? I was like,
maybe. Yeah.
Gary Moore had a tempestuous relationship with Phil because Gary always considered himself his own artist. So
Right.
every now and then he would do a Thin Lizzy tour or a couple of tracks on a record, and then he would invite Phil to be on his record. Like it's like always some kind of
Sure.
tension and stuff like that. But great camaraderie. So, but on that record, I feel like they just really hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that record. I was a little late to Thin Lizzy, apart from Boys Are Back in Town, and I don't know what it was. It might have been actually after college I got more into them. I was like, how was I not more into this? So it became a big record after that for me. But it's that would be my top 10, maybe not my top 5, but that is a great record. And especially, yeah, I think the thing is, since we're more product of the 80s in terms of our, actual age, I'm also 56. So some of these songs you heard, like The Boys Are Back in Town, and I heard that and I was like, yeah, it's really great. But I just kind of dismissed it as I did with Hendrix when I first heard him. Like I grew up in New York radio, and you heard Fox Lady, Purple Haze, Fire all the time. So when I was, you know what I mean? It didn't affect me. I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. And then when I first heard Machine Gun off of Band of Gypsies, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I get it now, and I just got full into it. So that was the same thing with Thin Lizzy. I always thought those were cool tunes, but then when I got into Jailbreak, I was like, this is such a great record.
It just makes you smile.
Yeah.
Whoa, poor Romeo sitting all on his ownio. Just like
Right. Yeah.
it's just
Um,
everything about it makes you smile. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to throw out since I see some of this, we have some similar records. So I'm going to throw out not a curveball yet. Well, no, it's curveball. 2112 by Rush.
And I have the vinyl of that. I was looking
Yeah.
at it, but
It was between 2112 and Hemispheres for me. I think Hemispheres was the one that I first really got into them on, but I think, 2112 sort of was the breakout for them. Well, no, it wasn't the breakout for them. That would have been Permanent Waves with Spirit of Radio, and then of course Moving Pictures and all that. And I saw them a bunch of times back in the day. But 2112 for me was really huge. I listened to that record endlessly, learned all the parts.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, I think for a lot of people that was considered, especially at the time, that was considered like that they were the greatest musicians, you know. And they're great. I don't get me wrong; they were amazing. But as you started kind of I started getting into Alan Halsworth, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. But Rush was sort of that entryway for me to people really being not. I mean, I love King Crimson. Some say monsters on their instrument, but like in that sense of like Neil Peart, you're like, oh man, and Geddy Lee. Like it was just the musicianship was so high that I was really attracted to that, and they had great songs. So I just thought it was just great, you know. I know I thought it was just great. It was great. I thought it was great. Thank you.
It still is great. I think that, you know, that's one of those things. I think listening to the drumming on the really blow you away drumming on Rush records gave you the same kind of euphoric rush that you got the first time you heard Yngwie play. It was just changed your notion of what can happen. It was really amazing. So those guys were obviously at the top of their game. It was also like, we're going to do a sci-fi story and a record, or, you know.
I love it, especially when you're a teenager. Like, you know. And I know it's on Hemispheres, but like Livia Strangiato, that was huge for me. Can you play Livia Strangiato? It's like drummers. Can you play Tom Sawyer or whatever? For me, I had to learn how to play Livia Strangiato, you know, because it was just so cool. And the live record at that time was big. I was at one of the Exit Stage Left tour. I was on that. I was at the Moving Pictures tour. I was at the Permanent Waves tour. And I saw them on the on the, what was the one after Moving Pictures? Signals. I saw Signals tour. So, and after that, they went in a direction, and I just, you know, and I went in another direction. So they kind of stayed in that period for me. It is the band, and whenever I have it on, my wife's like, "Oh my God, it's not a ladies band." You know, sorry for any women who, I know my demographic here. It's like 99% men, 1% women. So I'm not really, you know, thinking that too many women. I don't know of many women who are Rush fans. So.
I think their fans get a lot of grief.
I think they do too. And I love that when you hear Geddy Lee, they're just such good dudes, and they have such a sense of humor about it. And they toured with UFO, and UFO used to make fun of them all the time, you know.
But yeah, that's 2112. I mean, I was, like I said, I have the vinyl. I was looking at it. I saw them probably the Signals tour at Radio City with Marillion opening.
Okay.
And I'm still actually very fond of Marillion.
Oh, cool.
That's something I'll still listen to for sure.
Never went into that one.
It was kind of, you know, the lyrics are dark.
Okay. Unlike Sabbath. All right, so your turn.
Okay. So that was number 3. So number 2, I'm going to put Rainbow on Stage, the live album.
Mm-hmm.
Richie Blackmore, Cozy Powell, Ronnie James Dio, Jimmy Bain, and Tony Carey. And Martin Birch produced it. And, you know, it's the same lineup that made Rainbow Rising, which if we were just doing studio records, it would be Rainbow Rising. But I definitely, like, wore out Rainbow on Stage. Just, like, the phase shifter and the delay sound, and like just how jammy it was and all that kind of stuff. Like I was like, what is this? You know, like, you know, Ozzy and all these, you know, all the bands, as you know, as metal came into the 80s, like you were only ever just playing the solo from the record, right? It was like there'd be one, sometimes there'd be a feature, but a lot of times there'd just be an unaccompanied guitar solo. There wasn't any jamming. Rainbow on Stage was just amazing, and Cozy is still like one of my favorite drummers.
Absolutely.
Just and Ronnie James Dio's voice is amazing. You know, there are other recordings from that tour that are on Spotify, and they just sound like, oh, these guys are playing it wrong. You know, But yeah, so that's my number two. I'm gonna say
Are we up to number two already? Well, here's Keith leaving. Hey, Keith, what's up? Now he's leaving, talking about his decade. This isn't our decade. We could do an 80s one coming
what's
up.
up, Keith?
What's up, Keith? See you, Keith. No,
Yeah,
stand here, man.
I think it's our number two, right? Because if I did Aqualung, and then what did we do? Aqualung. Come on, everybody. What did I say? I said
Right,
Aqualung, UFO, Jailbreak. Yeah, I did
Okay.
Aqualung. I did
All right.
Aqualung, UFO, Jailbreak, and now my number two was Rainbow on Stage. There you go.
All right, so I'm looking because of you. All right.
You
Same-
how'd you tighten up the list, Angus? What happened?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got so many things here still. I'm on number two. Damn. No, wait, hold on. I had said Taken by Force. I had said 2112. And what else did I say? Oh, yeah, Judas Priest. Okay, yeah. So it's number one Rush. Okay, so number two. See what I want to throw in number two. Okay, Van Halen 1.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Van Halen 1. I think about what was what do you say about Van Halen 1? Still the one I listened to. That, and I would say, oh my God, I just got the name. I always do this in the spot. Women and Children first. The one after Mean Street on it.
Van Halen 2?
No, the one's Mean Street. Come on, somebody help me out. I can't remember,
Women and Children first?
No, it's the other one.
Diver
Anyway,
Down?
what?
Diver Down?
No. Come on, guys. You'll know what I'm talking about. All right, so the Van
No
Halen
Heavy
1.
Petting? No, that's a UFO.
So yeah, number one, not number one. I mean, just that first record, and that's the one I listen to all the time. I can go back to it. It's just so obviously we could do a whole show on Van Halen and the musical significance of them and what a great band they were. If you watch, there's a bunch of things floating around on YouTube of them live at that period. A few concerts that you can watch. Fair warning. Thank you. Fair warning. Yes, thank you. So you can watch them at in my mind, like the height of their powers. And I always liked the other records after that, but that was just crazy. If you go back and watch those live concerts, like live in Pasadena, somewhere on that first tour, I think they were opening up for Sabbath. And man, it's really great. And, when you think about like Dave, I mean, lyrically and all those things, I have a bit of a listening to it now, you're like, like some of it's kind of, but that record really holds up for me the most. The first one is great. I like all of the Van Halen 2 a lot. I liked all of them up until, I can't say I didn't like when Sammy joined, but I just, at that point, it was a different band and it had lost what I would really liked. And I thought 1984 was great. I saw the 84 tour. So for me, Van Halen 1 was kind of an obvious choice. I mean, we're leaving out, like, okay, just to go in here, am I leaving out Zeppelin? Like, Zeppelin's probably my favorite band, overall. Well, next to Pink Floyd and Zeppelin. But so does Zeppelin fall into the heavy thing? Sure. I don't know. I just feel like they're kind of like a class in their own, if that makes sense. Because all the mixtures of stuff that was on the records. So if we're going to talk about Zeppelin, I think the Zeppelin 4. I mean, it's Black Dog, and so we're going to put this in the Zeppelin catalog, and for me, it's in its own world. Physical Graffiti, yeah, just so that's the super heavy. But I see a difference between them and a bunch of the other bands that we talked about. I don't know what that difference is, but did people agree with that? That it's just a little different? Like, I don't know why. Anyway.
Well, it's like I was saying, it's just the most obvious thing. I mean, I think the only Zeppelin record I owned before I got maybe like gifted like the box set once CDs were a thing.
I'm gonna do
the only one that
take right now.
What's that?
Let's just do the spit take. If I could.
The only one that I owned was the first one. But
Wow.
because like everyone had Led Zeppelin 4 and would play it at parties, and like that you'd just hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And but the little store, little mom and pop store by where I grew up, just had cutouts, and they had just the first record. And I remember bringing it home and just being like, "This is not the same singer,"
Right.
because his voice had changed so much by the time Led Zeppelin 4 came
Yeah.
out. And I was just so used to hearing that, and then like on comes this full throated dude, going like, "Hey, mom," and I was like, "Who is this guy? Why don't they get him back?" But Zeppelin are huge, but that's not my number one. Tell you my
Okay.
number one.
I just thought of something that this also fell into the category. So I'm going to put, all right, what's your number one? Because it's probably the same number one as I have. Or not. I don't know. But it's one of two, right?
It's a tough choice. It's a tough
Yeah.
choice because it's between Volume 4 and Paranoid. But
Yeah. Me too.
I was inclined to say Volume 4 because I lived it's as far as its influence on me. Hold on. See, when you bought Volume 4, you opened it up,
There you
and
go.
there was a picture of Tony playing the monkey guitar. What probably didn't have a monkey on it. Did not have a monkey on it. And it has the John Birch, I think they're the Gibson P90s, but they'd been recovered by John Birch. So it was like they had a mounting ring and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, whatever guitar that is, I want to go to there. That's the thing. And I even
So you
get
don't
a
have anything like that, though, do you?
I do now, but I didn't for so long. Yeah, I've just never bought that kind of shirt. What's it called, a dashiki or something? I've never bought that. They were really popular. I remember kids in high school wearing them. I've never bought that shirt. I should probably put that on the list. Yeah, man, just this like Wheels of Confusion, Tomorrow's Dream Changes. The weird FX thing, Supernaut, Snowblind, Cornucopia, Laguna Sunrise, St. Vitus's Dance, and Under the Sun. It's just so heavy, so innovative and crazy. And, Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi,
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne.
I would say that would be my favorite Sabbath record, too. But it's a tough one because I think Paranoid was the first one I heard, but Volume 4 is the one I still put on more often. I'm going to put out a Sabbath record, I heard an interview with it was Rob Halford was on Mark Maron's show, and one thing I thought that was really cool of him to say was he's like, people forget with all that Ozzy became with the Osbournes and the spectacle of the whole thing and the TV show and the reality stuff and all that was he wrote some of the best. He sang on some of the best metal songs ever. Like he was the singer for Black Sabbath and came up with those melodies and sang these amazing tunes. And he had a good point. Like, I mean, obviously you and I think of that, but you think of Ozzy now, you think of the whole Ozzy, the character, and then when you get into that when you start listening to that, you think about it that way, you're like, oh, wait a minute, all my favorite songs, Ozzy sings on some of my most favorite songs and records ever,
Yeah. And so to give it its due, right? When you get Paranoid and you open it up, this had to be the coolest picture.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever these guys are into is awesome.
Yeah, this is totally. Oh, Animals. Hold on, that was the wrong click. But Animals is my favorite Pink Floyd record. But I don't find Pink Floyd in that category. And Angus and I are both Pink Floyd nuts. But this was the one I was clicking on right here. Buying a new vinyl album and opening at the Gatefold Sea was a spiritual experience. It was. And I know sometimes we sound old, and I know what my demographic here is on my channel. But I feel like my son, he just doesn't have that same. I feel like they're missing out on that whole thing. Like it was just so cool, and you'd pour over the liner notes, and you'd listen to the whole record and read everything about it. And then, like, especially when you talk about Floyd, everybody go check out the Squaring the Circle, that Pink Floyd documentary on hypnosis. It's really cool. It was just a thing. It was part of the whole package clearly part of the package, but it's part of the mystique of the band. And all right, looking at Sabbath and going, man, this is great. You know, just with that, I would get to the record store early. You know, okay, Number of the Beast gets released tomorrow. You know, so Friday morning, I was at the record store when it opened, getting, you know, Number of the Beast or whatever it was. You know, the new Ozzy record. So I you know, I don't, would I still be like that? But I feel like the younger generation, they missed out on that, something that was really important to us, and I think really cool and really artistic about the whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like an old guy, but
I mean,
it's cool.
I think the Paranoid record probably is sonically better than
Yes.
Volume 4.
It is for sure.
It is. That was Tom Alom. You know, he did the first Sabbath record and Paranoid, and then he came back, and then he was part of, I think, making. He did a lot of pop stuff in the interim, and then he was part of making British Steel.
Okay.
And so you definitely, and then, you know, Priest brought him back and teamed him up with the guitar player that's also a producer that's in the band, Andy
Andy
Sneap.
Steve, yeah.
Yeah. They had Tom Alom like team up with him on the Firepower record, because, you know, he does that analog hard rock, that punchy analog hard rock thing so good. So that you know, that guy, I just am so thankful for what those guys did. Yeah, somebody mentioned about Volume 4 being where they tuned down. They tuned down on Master of Reality for sure.
Right.
There's
Sure.
some C sharp on Master of Reality, and then I think Volume 4 goes between C sharp and D. Like Tomorrow's Dream is tuned to D, unless they sped it up with the tape. But Tomorrow's Dream is tuned to D on the record. Yes, yeah, I know. I was never into pot, so like I didn't have that, but I knew other people were like, you opened the
No, I have no
gatefolds,
idea
and I
what
was
you're
like,
talking about.
what was going on here?
Yeah.
And then I was just going to go into the other thing about production. Martin Birch, right? Martin Birch producing the studio and live records for Rainbow, and then he went on to be the guy. You know, the guys in Maiden were huge fans of that stuff, and so they had him. He produced Number of the Beast. I don't know if he did Killers. I think he did.
Yeah, he did. He did Killers. Yeah.
Yeah. So Martin Birch, just so great getting those tones and all that stuff. So I just love the way those records sound. I love the way they
Who did
sound on
British
vinyl.
Steel? I can't remember who did British Steel, because that's such a great sounding record.
That's Tom Alom.
Tom Alon. Okay, right.
Yeah.
You might have just did that. I'm sorry. I'm just sometimes reading the comments, but yeah. So we're at
And
my
that was
number.
recorded at John Lennon's, you know, what used to be John Lennon's home. That's a studio.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah, the
like-
Dakota. I'm just kidding. No. Okay, so this was tough. I didn't know where to put ZZ Top. You know, I am. So was it Trey Sombres? So I'm going to put them as an. I got two number ones. I'm cheating. The reason why is there's records that I listen to a lot. You know, when I started listening to stuff in the '80s, that I love that still hold with me more so than some of the other records. You know, so it would be Tres Hombres. But I would say, according to, what you guys, I have Apple Music. I'm waiting for the drum roll. And you can see what you listen to most this year. Did you do that? Like, you can see what your top playlist was. And it was pretty shocking. A few things were not shocking. I'll admit to one that was like, oh, you got to be kidding. I think I told you what it was. It was hysterical. So UFO Strangers in the Night, that would be probably my favorite to this day. At the time, it was not so much. I got into them a little later, but that is the record that UFO is my number one listened to band, which is hysterical because I never thought about it that way. And I think they're one of the most criminally underrated rock bands. I've got a friend who thinks that's not true. He's like, there was a B-level band. I'm like, no. We know that friend.
Yeah. I got somebody put in the London Calling, and I was actually thinking about I have that on vinyl, and I wore that album out, and
Yeah.
I was thinking about it for this because there are some pretty crushing tunes on that, Waiting for the Clampdown and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And that was huge. I didn't even realize how huge that was for me until like right when the second time I moved to Brooklyn, when I moved in with my wife, we our apartment was 2 blocks away from a guy that I went to high school with, and his he had the luckiest man in the world. He had an apartment where the next building was a low roof, and so he basically had like a second story backyard, and he had parties out there.
Hmm.
And there was a band of guys, and they played nothing but Clash tunes, and I was like, oh, that's right, this is all we listened to.
Um, you know, I wasn't so into them at the time. Like I got into them later. I don't know what it was at the time. Probably when I went to high school and all that was like, you're a metal guy. That was these guys like, that all kind of ridiculous sort of
Yeah.
thing. But back to Strangers in the Night, I would say there's huge influences on my guitar playing in the world, and you and I agree on this. But I would say one of the and I talk about it all the time. One of the biggest influences on my rock guitar playing is Michael Schenker. I don't say, I mean, he's not underrated in Europe or ever, but sometimes a lot of people don't really know who he is, and I think it falls into him being Michael Schenker, a little mercurial is the word, and also just inconsistent records. I think some are way better than the others. I mean, my favorite Schenker record is, though it's 80's, is Assault Attack. That's with the kind of ridiculous name if you think about it. Yeah, but so yeah, so Michael Schenker or UFO Strangers in the Night. It's the greatest hits, pretty much. It's a live record, but man, um, I think every tune is killer in there. It just I can listen to that record. I don't go tired of it. I think Phil Mogg is a great singer. Pete Way, uh,
Andy Parker,
Andy
right?
Parker.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
just
same
it's
the
just all
same
great.
lineup from Obsession. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
So I mean,
great.
it would have been maybe Obsession or Phenomena, like all those. But the one that really got me into them was I had first heard Rock Bottom, and I was like, what the, you know?
Yeah.
No,
Oh man.
actually, I got to say the first thing I heard from Schenker was the first MSG record. That was the first thing that I got into because I was living in New Jersey, and there was a radio station called WSOU, Seton Hall University, which played metal. And like, that's when I was getting into like, real heavy stuff, which I dug, But I was in that band for a bit. Any New Jersey guy. Laura was in that band Hades for about, I don't know, 6 months. But we played with Anthrax and you know Overkill at L'Amour's, the Rock Capital, because I was in that whole scene for a while of them and all those heavy bands.
Man, was your
So
down picking like off the charts at that point? Did you have it all together? Were
I
you like
I
thrash? Were
did,
you
yeah. I mean, I got kicked out of the band. I think we talked about for smiling on stage. And me and the other guitar player is his band. We didn't get along all that great, whatever. Um, and I went to music school. I was crushed because they put out a record supposed to do a tour. But then I went to music school and made the right choice. But yeah, man, it was just the down picking was good. And at that point, I was all into playing shred. And there's a cool documentary on Netflix about like the New York thrash scene. And I think what's the thrash scene in general? I think the guy Alex Skolnick interviewed. It's all about in San Francisco as well. But it was pretty cool at the time. L'Amour's in Brooklyn. That was the place. That was the hot spot. Used to play there all the time, and you inevitably would get your car broken into every single time you went out there. I think it was over in Bensonhurst. I don't even remember where it was anymore because now I live in Brooklyn for longer than I have not. I was like, oh wait, where's L'Amour's? It's funny. I went to a
L'Amour,
vintage, what?
the rock, capital
Rock
of
Capital
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. And I saw this shirt at a vintage clothing store. It was a L'Amour's shirt. I'm like, and my son was like, what's that? I'm like, um, it's I used to play there. And this guy behind me like, you used to play there? What is that exactly? I'm like, it's a club. It was a club. And I'm like, how much is that shirt? And he was like, $175. I'm like, I'll have one made. You know,
Yeah, right.
I don't care if it's not original. Now, all right, so I'm gonna throw out a few honorable mentions.
Well,
You know,
I just wanted to give Jeff, I wanted to give you credit for being my friend that would actually know some Schenker licks to show me some of the wacky stuff. So this is
Mhm.
one of the benefits of being friends with Jeff for about 30 years is that when I would just be like, I, I have no idea. I mean, I love Michael Schenker, but I have no idea, kind of what makes those like, and Jeff would be like, oh, well, see, it's like this, and then this happens. And I'm like, got it. He was like my YouTube. It was great.
Yeah.
Before
I mean,
YouTube.
so the other secret band, this is hysterical. And the most listened to actual record. Did I tell you what it was? Queensryche Warning. I'd gotten this thing, and then I was, I loved Queensryche growing up. I think Rage for Order is a great record. I liked Warning a lot. I saw them, and when they were touring small clubs and all that, and I just, they did a remix. I'm like, oh, we put that on, and somehow it would just like it would be on. I'd be driving it, come on in the car, and I'm like, hey, Jimmy Archie, what's up, Jimmy? Sir Lord Baltimore.
Jimmy Archie, how you doing, brother?
So, is Jeff
Queensryche the
drinking moonshine?
Warning.
It looks like
mean,
orange. Right?
of
Water.
I love the original. Is it an EP? Whatever.
The Queen
Lady
of,
Wore
was Queen of the
Black
Reich
and
on it.
Queen of the
Yeah,
Reich.
yeah, yeah.
And the Warning, man, I wore that out. And
Yeah.
and yeah, Rage for Order was had some really great stuff on it and was really interesting. But I think Operation Mindcrime is still like the the best like sounding and rocking and great tunes and
Yeah,
all
that's
that
their
kind of
best
stuff.
record, I think. But
Yeah.
the one I still go back to, obviously, really unbeknownst to me. So my top bands were, there was a lot of other stuff like that, but the other things in there. But it was ZZ Top, UFO, and Queensryche.
Yeah. I got Jimmy Archie. Al Petrelli says hi. He's
Yeah.
asking after you, just so you know.
So Jimmy Archie has done we'll talk about this coming soon. I got to get it tweaked. I got my amazing pedal board that Jimmy's done, and we're going to finish it on up. And then Jimmy's over at 30th Street Guitars, and we'll talk about my amazing pedal board. And he did it. And if you want a really great pedal board done, call over to 30th Street Guitars and ask for Jimmy. Hold on. I'll just show you the back once again.
It's like
Work of art on the back
like-
that is just
that's
insane.
wiring porn.
Look at that. I mean, come on. So I've made a few changes. I'm going to do a few little things, but we planned on this. But look at that. Just look at that. It's like my first time in my whole life I got a professional board. Not just me cobbling together a bunch of cables, It's going to work and stuff. All right, so let's do some honorable mentions because people are going to flip out. Okay, let's talk about Deep Purple. You're a huge Deep Purple fan. I'm a big Deep Purple fan too. But I was more into, you chose, I was going to choose Long Live Rock and Roll as one of mine. But since you chose the Rainbow stuff, for me, it was Long Live Rock and Roll. That was the one.
That's a great record too. The Shed.
Yeah, the Big Head
Come
Stocks.
on. It's
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you? What's another honorable mention?
Well, we didn't put AC/DC on the list anywhere, right? So Highway to Hell. Come on.
That would have been
mean,
the one for me too.
I had that on vinyl and just love that record. And really hard to learn because like they're just about every tune's in a different tuning.
By like a quarter step.
Yeah, and you have to think that they were probably speeding up the tape machine a little bit. It makes a big difference though. There's a one that's like almost in B flat. And I think it's like it just sounds Stonesy.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But man, that's such a great record. And I had to learn all that stuff for this AC/DC tribute that I did with my buddies. So it was neat to demystify it for a minute.
Yeah.
Get my fingers wrapped around all that stuff because he's a sneaky player. The same way Iommi is. I mean, like I only recently was doing really learning the licks on like Mob Rules and stuff like that. And it's like,
you're killing it. I can't play his stuff. It's so quirky. It's weird.
Yeah, and who knows if he played it like, because he doesn't play it like that live. I think it's like punched. I think,
Right.
probably the Mob Rules solo. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
three choruses of,
It's a long solo, and
yeah.
you learned it note for note, didn't you?
I think I got pretty close. There's some in
Hmm.
there that's like, I was actually thinking there's a whole space for lessons about like the what you can do to approximate things that makes it that is legit but not quite the thing. You know,
Right.
like,
Well, I mean, how far do you want to go down learning something note for note like that? There's no, it's just personal satisfaction. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the thing that it was when I was talking about that Sales of Sharon solo. I just wanted to learn it. I was like, I've never, I mean, it's great, but am I going to play that on a gig?
No,
I
but
don't
you
think.
get so much out of that. As a
Absolutely.
student, you get so much out of just taking the stab. And if you
Yeah.
get there and you're like, okay, there's some whole other, and sometimes it's a trick,
Yes.
right? You're like, this is impossible. And it's like, oh no, man. See, what he's doing is in the open string is filling in the gap between the buttons. Like, oh, well. And
Well,
the trick usually involves an open string.
yes. Well, I was talking to Dave Hill, our comedian friend. I was showing him Sales of Sharon. I was like, well, this is just a trick, like a fingering, not a trick, but it's a whole fingering. And it's just like, oh, that whole, like, that whole, yeah, that whole thing. You're like, oh, it's just 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1. And when you learn those little things, you're like, oh, that exactly. There's a thing to it, a trick.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a way to use that stuff musically, which I
Yeah.
think would always, that didn't make sense to me as I was kind of more of a bookish student. So it was like, well, when would you ever just use that? You know,
Yeah.
Ingve would use that,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
he does
Yeah.
that thing where he goes, he's kind of, let's say you're in E minor, right? He's doing
Mhm.
that. He'll put the major seven and the minor seven in there,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
exactly what
yeah,
Roth does. Yeah.
and like, oh, okay, I think
That's how
that
that
does it.
works, and that's how the fingering works. And that's how he gets it so fast, and it's a repeated idea. Yeah. So yeah, learning those little things.
But
A
it's like,
dream,
you can't do that. Yes, you can.
right? I would have to say, since we're still talking about the '70s records, for me it was like largely all those Sabbath records from that period. I was so into it, like you. Um, all those Priest records for me. And Maiden didn't hit till '80, I believe, right? Um, Rainbow and Deep Purple, but there's so many things I know we've left out. People are kind of like, what about this? I was never a big Aerosmith fan. Lots of my friends were. I wasn't. I mean, does The Who belong on this list? I mean,
I was looking at who's next.
who's
Yeah,
next?
I
I
was
mean,
like,
like it's just amazing.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
for me to really bond with the records, in most cases, like the lyrics are a part of that. I know that you dig some lyrics, but you're not as into it maybe as I am.
Mhm.
But that had to be a part of it. Like I think Jailbreak just like he had that Van Morrison influence, that kind of storyteller
Mhm.
Irish thing that he liked to do. I loved that. And I just loved everything about Ronnie James Dio. Just
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's very different than what Ian Gillan or Glenn
Well, come
and
on, he
David
was the
were
best
doing
metal
with Deep
singer there
Purple.
was. I mean,
What's that?
right? He was the best metal singer ever.
Yeah, most
I mean,
influential for sure. And
I love Halford and I love all these other guys, but yeah, for me, it's Dio. I mean, geez,
yeah,
um, something really. I mean, I liked some of the hype guys at the time, but the thing I love about Dio is I can listen to him and I don't go, "Oh, that's of that era." Even though, of course, these records are very much of that era. I feel like there's a bit more of a timeless quality to them than some of the stuff that I had listened to in the '80s when you listen back to it. I think
yeah,
certainly production would have something to do with that, but also like styles change. But when I hear Dio sing, I never go like, "Oh, that's like when I hear a Jeff Tate thing where you're really high and everybody's really doing that super high thing." It doesn't. I don't have the same bandwidth for that anymore, but I can put on Dio and still totally go with it,
Yeah. One thing that, and I won't play any actual licks, but
Okay.
one thing that's like funny between like if you take the Sabbath catalog, you have all the power chord based stuff,
Yeah.
the fifths, and then you do the Blackmore thing, and you have all the fourths based stuff, and then Shanker and Scorpions for some reason they have all this stuff that moves in fourths, kind of like that kind of, do you know what I mean? Like that's like a thing from that catalog that's like it's like kind of a funny thing in the writing style. And then uh Thin Lizzy has kind of more that those minor sevens and kind of like an R&B vibe to it and things like
Yeah,
that.
not
So
power chords, just more harmony to their stuff, and that works great with the chord. I mean the harmony solos too. They really outline the sounds of those changes. Yeah,
yeah, and then Tull is just like an arrangement, very prog in terms of the, all that, all that moving
yeah.
major thirds and all that crazy stuff. So there was just so much information in there that still serves me to this day, and just all the time with those records, man, it's just awesome.
I think one that was on the fence for me, or an honorable was "Red" by King Crimson.
Yeah, I think I just
Super heavy though.
yeah.
Yeah, so that
Did
was
that have Epitaph on it?
no, that's on for the Crimson King.
Oh,
Starless is on it. I don't know. I was a big Crimson fan. So, all right. So is there, I know you got to go soon.
yeah.
You got important meetings to attend.
I gotta pick up my daughter from her cello lesson.
Excellent. So there's our stuff. I mean, you guys can put your comments in the below. Obviously, there's so many things we left out. There's so many records. These
Dude, the
things.
what about stuff was all happening while we were talking.
I know.
And,
I know. We
we
got some. Like I said, Aerosmith was on there. We
we foiled all the whataboutism by being just endlessly entertaining with our banter.
exactly Bad Company, right? Yeah, Free, Bad Company. I mean, come on, like yeah, all these great bands. I mean, this was just what got us Nazareth. What else we have over here? Somebody was saying Ted Nugent, Robin Trower. I mean, yeah, Bridge of Sighs was huge for me. Is that heavy? It's heavy. I don't know. Yeah, I was a bigger Trower fan before I was a Hendrix fan because I had Trower first, and I remember hearing Hendrix after that, and going, "Oh, wait a minute!" Like, not that I think Trower necessarily is not exactly like Hendrix, but the Bridge of Sighs record is just so great.
I
I
didn't
can't
really know Trower at all. And then there was a guitar player who used to play at the Bitter End, where Jeff now occasionally plays gigs, called Gordon Gaines. And he would do this jam on Monday nights, and he'd play a bunch of material, and there'd be some Hendrix, and there'd be some originals, and then there'd be some other stuff. And I jammed with him once or twice, and he was like, it's just all Trower stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, what's that? And then I got Bridge of Sighs, and I was like, this is awesome. Again, I love the singing on Bridge of Sighs.
Hold on. I was going to go here. Right. I mean, Boston, Skinner, there's all that stuff. So Skinner, is it heavy? Is it like, I don't see where I think we were leaning towards the things that could have been called heavy metal at that point, generally speaking. Even though Jethro Tull did win the best heavy metal record at Grammys one year, which was like over Metallica. I was like, what? So I think all the stuff that we were talking about, I mean, I love Boston, and Skinner I love. So, becomes these super loose things. But I was thinking, like, who are we talking about? Van Halen, Sabbath, AC/DC, Scorpions, Priest, Rush, Rainbow. That to me, that's the framework of what is heavy metal, really. So, Alice Cooper, sure. So we can go on for this forever, but I just want to say to everybody, go over to angusclark.com. Check out Angus.
Follow me on the Instagrams. Check out my YouTubes. I did a couple shorts, rig rundown of what I used on the tour. Spoiler, it's an Axe Effects, and this is not an Adam Jones, just so everybody's aware.
Who?
Yeah, we got more love for Bridge of Sighs. It's a great
Yeah,
record.
it was a great record.
Yeah, if you can, if anyone wants to come over to my Instagram or my YouTube and click follow. Also, if you love 70s and early metal, I have on True Fire. I have a course, kind of my British metal survival guide or focus on something like
Yep.
that. So I like to cover a lot of those. That type of playing is really kind of what fed me as a younger player and still serves me well in the work that I do. So I highly recommend it to everyone.
Well, you're the guy who still you make your living off of playing music influenced by all the things we talked about.
3 note per string is still serving me, bro.
I got ruined when I became fusion-y guy. Wait a minute.
Fusion's back. I remember the keyboard player I used to work with, he said, like, the thing that they don't tell you about Fusion is that it's a cheat. Because, and this was a few years ago before the resurgence of the, North Texas state guys and all this kind of stuff. He said, the guys that invented Fusion made all the bread there was to make off of it. And
They
they're still the only guys that can get paid for playing it. You had to be in Weather Report or
No, it's true. I mean, like touring with Robin, I'm like, wow, he actually brings in people. Like I'm playing, I don't have Robin's career, of course, but yeah, or Scott Henderson or all these guys, like the original Cats,
yeah.
It's
I
totally
thought
true.
that's the best. It's a cheat because they inspired everybody. It created, made Berklee College of Music what it is today. They're still making money off of the fact that members of those bands went to Berklee.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and those are the only guys getting paid. But that's changed, thanks to, you got all the Wolfpack and the Corey Wongs
Yeah, yeah,
and all this kind of stuff. It's,
Thundercats. Yeah,
Snarky
sure.
Puppies and, Mark Lettieri and all these guys are doing such great, amazing stuff. And they're making records and filling rooms. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So,
Yeah.
but at the time I had that conversation with that keyboard player, I was like, man, that is so on the money.
It's so funny. It's so funny. I did have a conversation with a younger bass player in town. I was like, so who do he's like, what gigs you doing? I was like, well, I was playing with Robin Ford for a bit. He's like, oh. I'm like, uh, you don't know. And he's like, oh, who's playing bass? And I was like, Jimmy Haslip. And he was like, yeah, I don't know who that is. I'm like,
And
well,
was this
one played
person,
with Miles Davis and the other one started the Yellow Jackets. And the other, like, it was just that moment of like, you should know this. And I didn't feel like I was old. I was just like, wait, you should know this. Like, you should know this. And I mentioned, like the fusion thing, I was really inspired by those Jeff Beck records. He's like, oh, yeah, yeah. Like, you can tell he had no idea of any of that style of music. And then I think what he said, he's like, oh, you do an instrumental thing. Like, oh, yeah, like, you should pick up some of those gigs now Jim Campolongo's out of town. I'm like, now Jim Campolongo's a great guitar player, but I'm like, he and I play the things I mentioned are nothing.
right.
Like that at all.
Well, I mean, but the thing is that a lot of these guys are I'm in the middle of making a record, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have Van Romain play drums on it, and Van was in the Steve Morse band, is still in the Steve Morse band,
Yeah.
and plays for Enrique Iglesias and stuff now, and it's kind of a hero to me. So it was just kind of really cool to be able to, get in the rooms with these guys and make these things. And, I mean, it's like in terms of what Robin Ford means to you, that's a whole other level, but it's amazing. And everything's coming back. There's narrow casting now. So there's an audience for everything. And, we have to be able to find them. I do have to
Got to go.
split.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much to Angus. I'll let you go. And thanks so much, man. I'll talk to you later. And have fun picking up Lily. See you, bud. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right, so thanks everybody for hanging out. I hope you had fun watching just two old friends talk about ridiculous stuff. Like what's the best records? Once again, just our good vibes, our records that we loved. That's always great talking to Angus and like I said, dear friend for 30 something years. So once again, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Go over to Jam Guitar Lessons. We've got, if you have not already picked it up, I've got my foundational blues licks on sale for 60% off for the first 20 people to get over there and do that. BB's put that over on the side. It's also in my description below. And thanks to everybody once again. Thank you, BB, for being here. Welcome back from vacation. Checking out some new videos coming up. I got a new course coming out any day, Friday, on what you can do with a pentatonic scale over a minor chord. So it's not thinking blues, it's more thinking all these ways that a minor pentatonic scale can really open up your creativity by using a scale that you already know to get some different sounds. It's been really successful lesson with my students. It's been really great for me when I started to learn how to do this stuff. And I started listening to guys, started realizing like, oh, that's what Robin Ford does all the time, or that's what John Scofield does, and that's what a lot of other people do. When I started realizing that using your pentatonic scale in a different way, other than thinking blues or just playing A minor pentatonic over A minor, you have other options, really opens up your creativity, and it's just the same old scale. So that's coming out on Friday, fingers crossed. And I will see you all then. Thanks so much once again. You guys are the best. Happy New Year to everyone. And I will see you next week, or probably a video on the weekend if I get the course done. Either way. Thanks, BB. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.